Tonia here, your host of the Alchemy of Me, where we navigate the anatomy of humanity through the lens of science and spirituality. Let's unearth the layers and unravel the systems in place that dim who we are and how we live and experience life. On this journey together, we'll weave in an eclectic blend of mind, body, energy medicine, concepts, tools, and practices that'll nourish the seeds, the fire, that gold of intelligence that is you. This is an opportunity, your opportunity to reclaim, to rediscover, to transform, to alchemize you. The Alchemy of Me show starts now.
Hello, hello. Tonia here, your host of the Alchemy of Me, where we navigate the anatomy of humanity through the lens of science and spirituality. And I am excited to welcome back Luke Mulvaugh. Hi, Luke.
Hello, good to see you again.
You too. How are you?
Doing well.
Good.
Doing well.
Good. Yeah, we couldn't part ways quite yet. Yeah. For anybody that's maybe tuning in for the first time, this is, we just wrapped up a 3-part series, I guess earlier this year, on ancestral healing. And really this topic today that we're going to explore is kind of like it came out of after our discussions. There's so much more to navigate in this world, and there's so much more that we can uncover. And I'm just excited to have this conversation around this idea of illusions and what that is. And as I was thinking about this topic, I was like, I wonder if there's some interesting humans from the past that have some words of wisdom around illusion. And so I just did a quick search, and one that came up who's, an interesting individual is Nietzsche, actually. And I just wanted to share a quote from Nietzsche, and it is, "There is an old illusion, and it is called good and evil." And that one was just so, I don't know why, it's just so fascinating to me. And then another one that came up actually was Einstein. And he has said reality is merely an illusion. And so I just want to I want to weave those in, and maybe just, maybe this is the weaving and then it stays there. But I think as we move forward in our discussion, I'm excited to just to learn some new ways of thinking, new perspectives, and in how these laws, and we're going to talk about that, really are an opportunity and an invitation to look at life in a different way. And so I will not go through your bio again because we've done that a few times. I will say though, that later on, I'm making a note. I want to give anybody that's tuning in an opportunity to learn a little more about the program that you offer that's available globally. So we'll carve out space towards the end for that. So is there
Great.
anything else? I mean, we can just jump right in if you want, unless there's something that's coming up right away.
We can jump right in. Sure.
Cool. Okay. So kind of the lens in which we're looking today is really this idea of unveiling the illusion with the spiritual law of equality. And so with that, so taking the kind of the last part of that, knowing that maybe most people aren't familiar with the laws and what the laws are. So I think it would be helpful to just start out with what are the universal and spiritual laws of Creator, and then maybe like how they were delivered and why they're so potent. And maybe those are all kind of related.
Sure. The universal and spiritual laws of Creator, otherwise known as the Maka Wichankapi Wichoha, are 11 universal laws and 11 spiritual laws. The 11 universal laws are feminine. the 11 spiritual laws are masculine. These have been on the earth on 3 different occasions: 55,000 years ago, 22,000 years ago, and then they were brought back to earth in 1993 to a gentleman named Chief Standing Elk, and some may know him as Chief Golden Light Eagle. And he was visited by a group of star relatives from Orion it was the early 90s. And what they showed him this tablet, and it was a metal tablet, and it was tall, and it had these 22 symbols on them. Mm. And they basically told him that the people are ready for this again, this information. And so he received that visitation and then proceeded to take each of those symbols into ceremony over a period of several years. And he had his nephew, it was his grandson who ran the ceremony. It was his grandson or nephew, but he wanted somebody that had never taken in drugs or alcohol. So it was essentially a teenager who ran all the ceremonies. And what they would do is they would draw the symbol in the dirt, and he would look at the symbol, and then they would go into the ceremony. And with each of the symbols, there came 3 different relations: one from the earth realm, one from the galactic realm, and one from the universal realm. And the interesting thing about this is this was collectively brought. So it wasn't channeled by one individual. It was where these relations actually showed up in the ceremonial space and then provided the information. So they name, with each of the symbols, they name the law, right? And then essentially the message was brought from that earth spirit, from the galactic realm, and from the universal realm. And so they compiled this information over 3 to 4 years, and it was brought out to the world at a Star Knowledge Conference, the first one. I believe that was in 1996. And with it, they created what was called the Maka Wachakpi Wachohan, because they were told they had to write down everything that was provided to them in the ceremonies, and that it was supposed to be taken to the 4 directions. And so this document was created, and it's in different spiritual places throughout the world. It is held in the Smithsonian. And it came to me, which I think I told that story, well, it might have been the last episode, but it came to me through a series of dreams I had, and then interactions with one of the angels in that text named Blue Eye. And essentially, I started to work with the laws, working with them for 15 years or so. And what they are essentially is their original form of creation. So those 22 laws are what I like to call original form. Those symbols are encoded on our DNA, so they're part of our essential makeup and the essential part of our consciousness. The beautiful thing about it is they cannot be corrupted, so they cannot be used for dark or malevolent purposes, because they are original form of creation. And so when you use them, what it allows you to do is essentially restructure your consciousness to create alignment with your soul. Part of that creation and the alignment with your soul is, why are you on earth? You're on earth for a purpose. You're here for a reason, or a multitude of reasons. But one of those reasons is to offer gifts and offer giveaway to help collectively help the planet and the people. And so when you work with the laws, what it naturally allows you to evolve through is claiming your sovereignty in full, and then also bringing about your purpose on the earth. And what we see happen when people do this process of working through all 22 of the laws is their physical reality literally changes to be able to create opportunities for them to manifest their purpose upon the earth.
Mm. Wow. So I'm not even trying to ask this question, but I'm going to. So that's where we're at. So when you put the symbol, so when you're working with the symbol and you said, it's working at a DNA level. So is that like thinking of it from like say your DNA has been modified, something happened, and so it's at like at a DNA level is so working with the symbols, it basically like resetting our DNA. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because that's how it ties into the ancestral healing, because that's all DNA transfer over time, generations. Right? And what happens is we become polluted or like misqualified due to all
Mm-hmm.
the trauma and karma and energetic and toxic buildup generationally that's occurred due to
Mm-hmm.
our actions in life. And so what the laws allow us to do is essentially purify ourselves on a multidimensional level. And so when they're working on that DNA spiritual level, it translates to your physical body, um, and to your physical reality. So we've had
Mm-hmm.
people cure themselves of cancer with the laws, particularly cancers that are completely related to ancestral trauma and karma,
Mm-hmm.
right? We've had people heal all sorts of mental health issues working with the laws,
Mm-hmm.
because it brings you back to sort of original form of your soul's construction.
So it's potent medicine for sure. And I think what I've learned is like once you commit, like you see and feel the shift immediately.
Yeah, we always say the proof is in the pudding. So
Yeah.
like we don't ever try to convince anybody. We just say if you work with them with sincerity,
Mm-hmm.
uh, they work, and it's profound,
Yeah.
how they are able to reorient your consciousness in a way that benefits your own happiness and healing, and
Mm-hmm.
then by proxy the greater world around you, because all of it is designed for, like, one of the principles the Maka talks about throughout is the understanding of giveaway and the
Mm-hmm.
spiritual principle of reciprocity. So as humans, we have a responsibility to take care of the earth. We have a responsibility to take care of one another. And so as you work with the laws, it enlivens your soul to be able to enact your purpose upon the earth. But all of that is in the collective container of lifting one another up and taking care of Unchi Maka, Grandmother Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Because those are human responsibilities. They've been lost, but those are essential responsibilities that humans have carried for eons, right? And the
Yeah.
law the laws push us to do that. Which they say, like, everyone's a healer, everyone
Mm-hmm.
can talk to the spirits, everyone can be a medicine person. We all have different gifts within that container. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
some person's medicine is their art, but their art is so cosmically connected that when a person looks at it, it can provide deep healing. Maybe it's their music, maybe it's their ability to speak with love. Like, there's all different types of gifts that we each have, but the understanding is we each have some type of gift, cosmic gift that we can bring out. So it really breaks down hierarchical forms of spirituality, which we see most forms of spirituality being a pyramid, which that's when it's not a pyramid, it's a circle. Um, and that's part of the beauty of it, because it really breaks apart a lot of the new age understandings of like who can connect, to really bringing forth like we all can connect. We just have to clean out the stuff we have to clean out and
Mm-hmm.
get in alignment. And that's what the laws do. They create alignment in your consciousness with the universe.
I love that you brought that up, Luke, because I feel like as someone who has worked a lot with different modalities personally for my own healing, but then worked with others, um, healers, is I think that to me feels like an illusion, is this idea, just calling it out, like this idea that there are quote unquote healers, because like you said, like we all have, there is that part inside of us, all of us, we all have that capacity, and we all bring our medicine and our, through love and through, I guess through our own unique ways. So I don't know if that, does that feel right or not? I'm not quite sure if that's, I mean, that's not really that is an illusion, I feel like for me, where it's yeah, I don't know. Let's go into that, because I'm kind of,
Sure.
just talking. I mean, we can use it through the lens of the law of equality, but just looking at this idea of like, our, kind of our purpose and why we're here and who we are, and what we're capable. I think that's like a big one. It's like, what are we capable of? Especially in these turbulent times where it just feels, like every day is like a new sort of, chaos.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if you have any thoughts there on.
Well, if we tie it back to the spiritual law of equality, um, when we rebuilt our lodge this year, there was, every time we rebuild the lodge, there's usually some messages that come through that sort of overarch the year.
Mhm.
And the messages that we received were no more suffering. Okay. Stop creating your own suffering. Don't make others suffer. And the second one was, the time is now to step into who you really are.
Mhm.
And so from that, we're running a lot of ceremonies, and we see these themes come up spiritually of like where we're getting pushed to and what the spirits are trying to guide people to do, which this year it's been a heavy influence on your sovereignty.
Mhm.
Your sovereignty is connected to your purpose, which is connected to your soul. We have to assert that in the world in a way that is in alignment with Creator, right?
Mhm.
So that's one of the energies. The other energy that's really come forth is the clarity that comes with the law of equality, which is to see into all of the illusions that are created within our consciousness, and that how those extend to our external reality, as well as our relationships. And currently, right now, what is happening is there's this cleaving going on. There's this separating between truth and illusion.
Mhm.
And what that's doing is it's placing people in a lot of fairly difficult situations, to where they are forced to see the illusion that they are participating in, and or they're forced to look at the illusions they hold themselves of how they thought things were, right? All of that ties back to sovereignty and purpose. Sovereignty, your freedom; your
Mhm.
purpose, why am I here on the earth? Like, what is the real reason? What is the reason in alignment with Creator and the universe as to why I'm here? And so as this cleaving is going on, it's pulling on all these threads of illusion that we've created, that tie into relationships, tie into our jobs, tie into the reality the reality we've created around us.
Mhm.
And the message we've gotten continually is that as this separation occurs, if you I'll use an example. Say I have a friend whose name is John. I've known him for years, but I know John lies. He talks a lot of nonsense. He gaslights, but he has a real good connection to someone that I might need a job from. And we've talked about it, and And so I sort of have a superficial fake relationship with John. I still am his friend, but we're not, but I know these illusions are there. So I maintain that relationship knowing that that illusion is there. What that is a tacit invitation for that illusion to take hold in my life and manipulate my external reality.
Mhm.
And so as this cleaving is taking place, like, wow, I really see that John gaslights me. I see that he lies some of the time. I do love him unconditionally, but I see that's a cord and a thread that has to be cut. And I don't care if he can get me a good job. It's not worth to maintain that energetic connection, because if I maintain that energetic connection, I'm essentially allowing that illusion to take hold in my consciousness. So that's one level of what we see happening in relationships. That may also trigger, like, wow, I see a lot of illusion in John about his lying. How am I dishonest? Oh, wow, I have these shadows in myself about where I make these little micro lies and I tell myself these stories. That's all an illusion, right? And so then I'm invited to clean that, to purify that, to change that. And again, if I choose not to, my reality will form in a way to try to get me to change that. So essentially, it can blow up a lot of people's lives in a lot of different ways. But the overarching energy from the universe that we see happening is getting people to assert their sovereignty, assert their purpose, and march forth with that as their shield and as their foundation. And we have lots of people who have been asked to do things, spiritual things, for years, and they've been afraid and they've been insecure. They haven't felt empowered, and they're just being pushed out and saying, no, let's go. Come on, time is now. No more waiting around. The time is now. We see a lot of people with relationships shedding. But the key to understanding is that if we do not do that, you are inviting that into your life.
So is that like you not I guess I want to, if we can talk a little about the freedom piece, like the sovereignty, because I think I know even for myself, I mean, we live in the land of the free. And so maybe sometimes we get confused with what freedom actually means and what it actually looks like and the illusion of freedom. I don't know if that's what's coming up for me right now. I think because that's been a big part of why it took me so long to move through the first two laws. You know, it's like I thought that I had my free will, that I had sovereignty, and yet I kept finding these parts of my life where I clearly did not. So yeah, I don't know if that feels, because that's kind of freedom. Yeah, it's like free will.
Yeah,
And
I can talk about like the tenets of free will as
yeah.
the Maka talks about it, which, there's four things. Well, there's more than four things, but these four are most poignant, which I tell to everybody: respect of self, respect of others, forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others. That allows for an individual to access their freedom, because then it's essentially creating non-attachment to the experiences that go through. And we very much live in a world where the world attempts to dominate us. And we have this conception that, well, if we try to dominate it back, we're gaining our freedom, when ultimately a lot of the understanding of how the world dominates us comes from essentially not holding attachments to our experiences in life and seeing how they are lessons and teachings from the universe. So, like, for instance, I lose my job, but I'm praying and I feel like I'm doing a lot of good stuff in my life. I lose my job. There's two ways you can go there. You can go, Oh my God, how am I going to get money? I got 4 kids. We got to pay our rent. Holy sheesh. Or you can be like, wait, what's the teaching here? How did that job align with my soul? Did it align with my soul? Was that job allowing me to feel like I could be my authentic self all the time? No, it wasn't. Okay, so maybe that's the universe saying it's not time to have that job anymore. It's time to do something that's more oriented towards, what I feel I need to do in my heart, right? And that's part of the process of becoming free. And for some, it's all different levels, because some people have no idea what their purpose is. They have no idea what they want to be doing in life, or even how to be happy, because our world dominates people. We get caught in these cycles of suffering and just survival, which it's very difficult to have these more existential, prayerful experiences when we're literally living hand to mouth, which there's plenty of people that are. But part of that, like, you escape that through not gaining attachment to it, right? Through not allowing any restriction over what can come, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it certainly makes sense. And I think, suffering looks many different ways. And there's many layers to it. And when it's a constant hum that you've experienced for most of your life, it's kind of like it's your baseline. And so
Right.
I think a lot of times, like, the illusion is like there's no suffering. Like, you personally aren't suffering because that's all you've ever known. So like
Yeah.
what you're saying, like, thinking back to your friend John, if John, it's like, we all have those people in our lives that, like you said, like, there's that unconditional love, and for whatever reason they've been in our lives, and then wondering why, because you can feel that, um, you start to feel that dissonance with that relationship where it just doesn't feel good anymore, and maybe not understanding why. And maybe that kind of like the illusion coming for, like, you're starting to
Yeah.
see. Yeah. Ugh.
I know it's tricky, because it's very, like, it's common, it's
Mhm.
very common.
Yeah, and it's it's also, it's in thinking of it, trying to think of it like not like oh, it's so sad. You're not going to be, maybe your paths will, you'll part ways. But then remembering too that it's like you came together for a reason, and, there was some learning there, and maybe there was an opportunity, to come together to show each other that illusion. And I say that just knowing I have, um, around my own, like, boundaries with others. And to me, um, that is a lack of respect for myself, in the way I show up. And then obviously it can also be a lack of respect for others. Um, and boundaries keep coming up across the board, I think, because it is like, and maybe it's it's more the choices. Maybe that's a better word. The choices we make around how we see it as an opportunity, an
Right.
expansion and love, or contraction, fear, I'm not going to survive, which is kind of like, feels like the control that we've all had, pushed on us for so long.
Yeah, and that's what we're conditioned. That's how we're conditioned to respond. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, what I will say, like, I've been indicted by the federal government. This was years back. They wanted to give me 30 years in prison,
What?
and this was in 2011. And after that happened, I was racked with such fear, because my youngest son would have been 2 at the time. And I went on the hill to burn off the fear. So no food or water for 4 days. And then I I was up there and I suffered, and I got one message the whole entire time. And it was, pray for the heart of the judge, pray for the heart of the prosecuting attorney. And so I did that. And then I did that for the next year because I wasn't sentenced for a year. And I got 45 days. But that message was, don't focus on what could happen to you. Focus on the hearts of these individuals who are going to be making these decisions that are going to impact the future of your life. And, you know, I've been homeless with 4 children. There was a message there. There was a teaching there. There was a teaching I had to see. There was a teaching my wife, Maddie, had to see. And it was incredibly healing. Was it hard? Yes. But what I have found is anytime you're faced with your greatest adversity, it's an opportunity to go deeper into alignment with Creator and yourself to see what is being brought forth to be cleaned and purified, but then also to see what the gift is that can come if you choose to assert your sovereignty. So like when I was 22, I was working with at-risk youth and it wasn't going very well. I mean, I got burnout because it was a high risk, it was a very high level facility, it was an incarcerated facility. And I love that work, but I totally burned out. And I was given this choice, and at that time I was consuming a lot of alcohol, and I had this conversation with my dad, and I was like, Dad, I'm going downhill here. And he said, well, you need to do what you need to do for your own freedom. And so I packed up my car, quit my job, and drove to Montana and restarted my life over. I didn't have a place to live. I didn't have a job. I had gotten into grad school at MSU, but I chose to do that basically as this way to assert myself in charting a new direction for myself. And we're brought these opportunities, whether we have families or not to strive towards our purpose, to strive towards our dreams. But that takes courage, and it takes a desire to be like, wow, I'm really suffering right now. There's some hardship going on, but how do we move through this to create deeper sovereignty and to create freedom for ourselves?
Yeah, and
it's hard in our world. It's a hard thing to do, but like you can do it.
Yeah. It just reminded me of, I hadn't thought about this until you were talking about your kiddos and being, you know, without a home. And it brought me back to being in ceremony with all of you, and just the talk about a gift, just to see your children and their wisdom. You know, as we're like, I'm gonna get emotional. We're sitting there and we're praying, and it was dark, obviously, so I'm not sure which of the boys said this, but you know, it was like they're praying for your wife Maddie's car to be, you know, to keep running like it is, like just like super, like things that you wouldn't, they're not asking for like video games or you know, a bigger TV or things. It's like they want their mom to be safe. And then, you know, one of the other boys, I remember talking about like praying for abundance for an elk, and like honoring that elk in a way that we have lost that way of, you know, honoring the lands. And it was like, it was just such a beautiful reminder that these are choices we make in how we are living, having these lived experiences. And yes, they're still hard. And sometimes, you know, you question it, and then you see that and you experience that. And it's like, I will never forget that. So, I thank you for, you know, your part in raising these future leaders. Yeah.
I mean, you know, it makes a difference when your children see you walk through adversity with
Yeah.
hope, or with a desire to see what the deeper teaching and learning is. Because that's all it is, it's learning. And when it deals with survival, it's hard to see it like that. But I know for my own experience, and I know Maddie would probably agree with me, when we saw it like that was when we moved out of that situation. When we were able to see the teaching and what had to come, and when we removed the fear and like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? We had to release that suffering and actually see what the universe creator was trying to show us. And then when we saw that, a couple of weeks later, we got a place to live.
Yeah.
And so the same thing with when I use that example of going on the hill. You can be concerned that you're going to go to prison for 30 years, but that wasn't what it was like. No, pray for others' hearts. And I didn't go to prison for 30 years. Thank the creator. Holy
What
Lord.
are you? I mean, that's quite impressive in itself to get to make the government that mad that that's on the table.
Oh, it was I was running a state legal medical marijuana business, and it was when the feds raided Montana back in 2010.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't in a target. I just was next door to a guy who was, and I got pulled into it. And
Oh,
they
interesting.
were throwing. I mean, I think I was more than through it. I think they had 20 years, 20 years, 20 years, 20 years, 4 charges, all 20 years. And that's part of what the feds do is they throw that at you to get you scared so you'll plea out. Because if you take it to trial, which I think their conviction rate is like 90%, then you're looking at that time. But I did plea out, but the beauty of what that message was is there's a new judge that came on, and he said, if you could show that you were running an altruistic business that was helping people, then he would have leniency. So I had over 100 character reference letters. I was paying all my taxes and doing everything legal according to state law. And I was able to show him that and show that I was helping a lot of people. And so 45 days, which is, I followed that message. I mean, that's what I did. And it ended up working out.
That's a great story that I have not heard before. Well, let's take a quick break here, Luke. And then when we come back, we will see what happens next. Stay tuned.
Sure, sounds great.
And welcome back. Tonia here with Luke Mulvaugh from the Sacred Walk Initiative. And we're just talking about the unveiling of the illusion and through the lens of the spiritual law of equality and really the I would say all the laws. We've kind of highlighted that, which I think is good. So I think it would be helpful as we kind of round out our conversation today to just, there is this illusion, and there's an infinite number of illusions, really, and how we live. Like there's this opportunity to look at it in a different way. I think that's what I'm feeling, and life is just really hard right now, and so I want to acknowledge that and normalize that. And with that, I think what I have found, and so this is where I want to go, Luke, with you is, for me personally, I feel like these laws and kind of this framework has been really supportive for me through these wild times. And so if you could just kind of talk a little bit about that, like what are some of these practical methods or tools, things that we can do to support ourselves through this unveiling of the illusions?
Sure. Well, in our healing program, you do 3 things. One is you connect directly with the earth and the elements, right? So fire, water, stone, air. That in particular is used to purify, clean, right? The other tool that we teach people is how to make prayer ties, which activates the spiritual law of reciprocity, okay, or that spiritual principle, excuse me, of reciprocity. What a prayer tie is a tobacco offering. So say I'm having all sorts of fear of some sort. You can make a prayer tie and a tobacco offering and ask that that fear go into that offering. And it's physically removed from your consciousness, and then eventually you would burn that. And so that's another tool to be able to clean things off of you. And then the other way is people invoke the laws, which activate those symbols in your DNA. And then you work through the laws in their subsequent pairs, the first two being the law of free will and the law of freedom. Within that context, there is one particular law. It's the universal law of innocence, truth, and family.
Mm-hmm.
And what that law allows you to do, or helps you to do, is to cut energetic cords with relationships that you have. This does not mean that you're ending the relationship. What it does allow you to do is stop the energetic transmission that you're having with another individual. And so when we see people that are they see relationships where there's a lot of illusion, like that's our number one recommendation that they do or that they should perform, as a cord cutting ceremony with themselves to essentially stop that energetic transmission, and basically it creates freedom, and not just for yourself, but for the individual on the other end as well. And so any type of, like, it's all focused on purifying. So if you're seeing or feeling certain things in your consciousness, understanding that energy has to be moved off of you. And there's really simple ways to do that. What's most accessible to everybody is just the earth. So even if you're having intense fear about something, maybe you're having panic. I mean, I've had people that have been in the middle of a panic attack, and they say, okay, I want you to go outside, put your hands on a tree, make a brief prayer to this tree to ask to help remove that energy off of your consciousness. And they will go and do that, and the panic attack will dissipate. And so when it comes to illusion, the key to understand is to clean that off where you feel it connected into your consciousness and your body. Mm-hmm. And then also make the choice to not perpetuate.
So if somebody has a hard time connecting because maybe they have been very disconnected in general, so even just being in nature is a challenge. Would you recommend still going outside, putting their hands on the ground or feet on the ground, tree, and then just maybe setting the intention that yep. Okay. Because I mean, if they're not able to connect with where it's coming from or connected, just asking for that guidance. And
you don't have to, if you're feeling a lot of fear, it can be super simple. You can go and connect to the earth, direct contact, and ask for that fear to be lifted off of you. Same if you're feeling a lot of anger, maybe you're, or resentment, maybe you're feeling a lot of judgment. So if you can identify the way you're feeling, then you can ask the earth to help remove that from your consciousness. We also have a lot of people, because one of the things that's common is what we call the ancestral fog. So some people are fairly confused and they have no idea how they feel. But that also can be an intention, right? Is you can ask the earth or to lift that fog or lift that confusion so you can gain greater clarity of your heart. Or of actually how you're feeling. And that tends to become I see that in the men a lot more, particularly if they're from backgrounds to where being in touch with your emotions is has been bred out of how they're raised, because a lot of men just don't have any contact to actually how they're feeling. And so taking that first step and essentially just setting the intention around anything in relation to with the earth and understanding you're trying to clean energy off of your consciousness is what's most important.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember many years ago I was having a hard time figuring out what my feelings were, and so I printed out a feelings wheel that they give to like kids in elementary school. It's like,
Yeah,
I don't feel like I quite got this nailed down. It's still hard sometimes to connect with it, especially if there is layers to it, or if it's pulling
right.
from, yeah, if it's not just a, yeah, if there's layers to it, I guess I don't know if that, yeah. And maybe it is like the ancestral fog piece too that I know that I have had.
For sure. Yeah, in your situation, yeah,
Yeah.
that's quite common.
Yes. And it's also interesting though, once you see it and acknowledge it, and then I guess then going back to what you had said earlier, it is like, okay, we don't have to be hard on ourselves. Like it's an opportunity to accept ourselves with love and an understanding, and just see the possibilities of growth from that place. Um, yeah, feels, yeah, it feels good, Luke.
Yay, good.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can speak to the fact of feeling detached from your body and yourself to now not, right?
Yeah.
And that's
Oh, yeah.
those layers peeling off, and that's the cumulative effect of working with the laws and what it does over time in a relatively quick period of time. Comparatively, you know, disassociation is a major, like it impacts a lot of our population just due
Yeah.
to childhood trauma that so many carry. And
Mm-hmm.
you have to go to counseling for years, but the beauty of the laws is it's able to circumvent, bring you back into yourself, which then that's where you need your feelings wheel.
I know. Isn't it funny?
Like, wow, now that I can feel and I'm not numb.
Yeah. It's wild though. I mean, to be able to operate like that, because it does feel like there's such an internal dissonance. I mean, because I remember being like um, had such big feelings as a child, and then all of a sudden, like, it was literally nothing for a long, long time. And then now I remember actually recently, like, I think it was last weekend when I was invoking the third and fourth laws, and I could just feel like my heart beating at such an intense, it was like super intense, but also like maybe I was supposed to feel that the whole time, and I just didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is potency and power in it. So do you want to just, since we're here, do you want to just um, let people know if this resonates, I mean, whether it's triggering or there's a resonance or whatever, they're feeling into it, how they could, how they could get involved with you and Maddie and your work.
Yeah. So a big one of the, like, Maddie and I are very pragmatic individuals, and then talked about Ishtar Blue Eye. The Syrian star relatives are also quite pragmatic. They're very, like, direct and to the point. fix this, do this, do this. So one of the things that we saw as a major issue culturally within mainstream culture is we don't have a way of life that connects the universe into our everyday, whether it's going to the grocery store or doing our work or whatever it may be. That part of our foundation is gone, right? And so we don't have a way of life, you know, that's rooted in connection to the universe, connection to spirit. And so we also saw that the retreat model doesn't really work, or it creates this like roller coaster effect where you can have these big steps of growth, but then what do you do when you have to go back to your day-to-day? So we created a healing program that is extremely pragmatic, that anybody can do, any place on the planet, that essentially allows you to spiritually and consciously evolve while living your day-to-day life. And what it creates is a way of life, a way of navigating the unseen multidimensional universe on the day-to-day while still being a doctor or working as a teacher or being a plumber. And we have that range of people working these processes from all walks of life, all stratas of income and race and gender, and essentially it allows you to evolve towards your purpose, towards why you're actually here, while purifying and cleaning all misqualifications, imbalances, patterns in your consciousness related to the stuff you've accrued in this embodiment, clean your ancestral line. And then with some stuff, some people end up getting into previous embodiment stuff, but that's not. So you work with the earth using prayer ties, laws. You learn how to create ceremony for yourself. It's extremely empowering process, because the whole, we sort of joke, it's like wizard training.
It is. It really is.
You learn how to navigate the unseen and how to work with that realm. And our approach is we help everybody to level up so that they're able to engage in the spirit world as it relates to physical reality. And
yeah, that's the potency right there.
It's not commodified. So it's given away, and any reciprocation we get back is donated from someone's free will and choice.
Yeah, it's I think, going through so many different programs and different healing modalities and working with different individuals, that is like what you just shared about, working with spirit and creator, and then it being very much the here and now, because part of the human experience is being here now and figuring out how to navigate this space and time. So I love, that's what I love so much about one of the many things about the program is the applicability and the practicality of it. Like you said, like being able to integrate it into whatever your life looks like. And I think that's super powerful, because I agree, like the retreat model is not sustainable. We have to figure out how to not retreat life. We have to figure out how to be here now.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Not retreat life. Yeah.
Yeah. Or vacation.
Yeah.
I love a good vacation, but I mean, we're vacating our life, and then we come back and it's still, how are we living in the moment? Yeah. Well, thank you, Luke, for another amazing,
Yes, you're
yeah,
welcome. I
I,
love visiting with you. It's fun.
same, same. And I stay out of the ditches a little better when we're going live than when we have conversations on the phone. So So if anybody is interested in learning more about Luke's program, Sacred Walk Initiative, check out his website, sacredwalkinitiative.com. And if you would like to learn more about what I'm up to, which I never talk about, feel free to check out what I'm doing on wildminnow.com. And have a blessed day, Luke and
Thank you.
Emily,
You
our
too.
beautiful producer, and everyone.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Alchemy of Me, where we navigate the anatomy of humanity through the lens of science and spirituality. For more mind, body, energy, medicine concepts, tools, and practices to nourish the seeds, the light, the fire, that gold of intelligence that is you, tune in every first and third Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on transformationtalkradio.com.
For more information about me and my work, please visit wildminnow.com. That's wildminnow, MINNOW.com.